You know, we talked about last week that life is a stage and that we're the players in a play. You know, Shakespeare told us that, didn't he? So we talked about that last week, and I showed you all the similarities between Kennedy and Lincoln, and I'm going to and 9/11 and another tower that was, you know, down in 11/90 instead of 9/11, and how these things keep coming in our lives till we learn the lesson, if we can see it. And we said that there's a director of this play, and it's this great light that is really directing it. But right now, I was looking at all of you, and you all look real to me. How about, look around, doesn't everybody look real? But you know, the truth is, the real you is invisible. All we're seeing is the body that you've chosen for this incarnation. The real you can't be seen with the physical eyes. So what I'm seeing is just what you've chosen. And without the real you, without your body, you know, I remember when my mom passed away, I was with her, my brothers, we were all sitting there. And it's like I could see that life force begin to leave her body. And I mean, it just like came up from the bottom. You could just see, you know, it just like you could see that life force, and then it was whoosh, and it was like a turtle leaving its shell. So without the real you, your body is useless. You ever thought about that? It really is like the turtle shells that they leave behind. We've just come here so that we can use those. And so we talked about those strange synchronicities last week and events that happened through the years right in front of our eyes. How many of you didn't know all those facts about Lincoln and Kennedy? That there was like, I mean, I probably gave you 25 facts last week that are identical to, you know, each other. So we're catching on to these, you know, that they had a brother. They had brothers with the same names. One had a brother, one had sons, one died. Edward died early. The other one, you know, lived. Same things. They're just everything. Their vice presidents were named Johnson. The dates of their inauguration, everything was so similar. But was all this a coincidence, or was it synchronicity? And that's what we talked about last week, which Carl Jung coined that term synchronicity in the early 1900s, meaning coincidence with purpose. And what a coincidence really is two lines coinciding perfectly. So there is no, really what we showed last week, there is no coincidence in your life. You know, we talked about the Kabbalah, and we talked about the Zohar, and the main message of those is that there's nothing called chance. That everything, and I know, Gary, you've always said that too, everything is working to bring something out in our life, but I think right now it's working in a bigger, faster way. I mean, how many of us are getting real lessons really quick right now? And having stuff come up we didn't even know we had, because we really are being directed by a divine light that is working for us in a big way right now. So every kind of coincidence is happening in your life, in our world, for a great purpose, if we can see it. A great intention. There's something happening in all of our lives, and especially, somebody said something to me recently, which I believe is true. I think those of us that are really awakened are more aware of what's happening. Those that are asleep, maybe they just think things are happening, you know, faster, but they're not as cognizant of really how this stuff is coming up and happening in our lives right now. But just like Lincoln and Kennedy, and then I was talking about Moses and Martin Luther King. You know, Moses went and could see the promised land, looked over into it, but he said God said he couldn't go over, and the next day he died. And it happened with the same thing with Martin Luther King. I read a quote that he said, if I don't get to the promised land, you people will get there. But I've been up on the mountain and I've seen it, and the next day he died. You see, we're seeing these things in our lives, but we're also seeing it on a grander scale. But very few people pay attention to these things. And how many of you right now can think of your life, the things have happened over and over again, and maybe you haven't gotten the picture. But if you look back, it's like the same people came in. You know, we always say somebody marries one kind of person, and then they divorce that person, and they marry the same person again. Or you have a friend, or whatever it is, those people keep coming back into your life until we get the message, and we can move on. So what we're doing right now, we're starting to pay attention. And we're starting to put the puzzle pieces together, because we have no idea that there's a connection between what's happening in front of us and what's happening in the visible realm. And that's what I want to talk about, that invisible realm today. Your real beingness is not here. You know, we've talked about, we only see 1% of the universe. 99% of the universe is invisible to us. Science is telling us that. This is not a religious thing. We're only seeing 1%. So the real truth, the real reality is not what you're seeing with your eyes. You know, it says faith doesn't walk by sight in the Bible. And faith is a belief. And are we walking by sight, or do we walk by that invisible realm that's connected to something much higher? And I'm learning these lessons too, for sure. What's happening in that invisible realm? The realm we call spirit, or the shadow, or the twin. Science is calling it a twin realm now. I want to read you a verse from the Bible. This is Romans 1:20. And I've read it before because it makes me think all the time about every physical thing is pointing us to that invisible realm. It says this, for the invisible things of Him, the divine essence, all that is, we can call it God, whatever we want to call it, from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made or visible. So why do you have a body? Why are there trees? Why is there sand? Why is there a beach and all that? Because those physical things are always pointing us to a greater dimension of the invisible realm. It says everything from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, the visible. Even His eternal Godhead, so that you're without excuse. It's saying because we live in a three-dimensional world that has all of these physical things, like money, which we just put in, which is nothing but paper, like Nancy says, we're just putting paper in there, but it's a tool. And everything in this physical world is a tool for us. Our friends, our family, you know, a tree. Buddha picked up a flower one time and that was his whole sermon, just holding the flower. So what is it pointing us to? The invisible realm. You know, I remember when the Twin Towers came down, I knew that they were a picture for us. And I said, what's the picture? And Spirit said to me clearly, and I had this on, when I was on television, I talked this. He said, what were they called? And they were called what were they called? Trade Center, that's it. You get the thing today. They were called the Trade Center. And he said to me, what has the church been for the last 2,000 years? They've been trade centers, haven't they?
Yeah.
They have been trade centers. They've been taking money and trading human life. And he said, what did you see when those towers came down? I said, I saw people from all religious walks, from every political persuasion holding hands and singing God Bless America on the streets. And do you know what? They built one building in its place, and it's called the Freedom Center. So what he said is we're seeing what's happening in the physical world. It's pointing us that those invisible trade centers are coming down. And in the place, we're building something called a Freedom Center within ourselves. So we can see every single physical thing is always pointing us to something that is so much bigger. So your body is not what makes things happen. Your thoughts are, your emotions are. The person who killed Lincoln, the person who killed Kennedy, were both invisible beings in a body. And that caused what happened to each of them was the thoughts. It wasn't the body. And the people who bombed the Trade Center were beings in a body that caused all that devastation. And everything we see happening in the physical realm is put in motion by an invisible energy. Everything. Everything in your life. The chair you sit on first came in the mind, a thought of somebody, and then that thought began to manifest. And it's the same in your life. We're beginning to see that in such a bigger way. And a visible being in a body, that's what we really are. But we haven't understood about that invisible realm, the spiritual realm. We all talk about it, don't we? But what's more real to it? If we were really, really truthful today, what's more real to us? That invisible realm or this physical realm that we live in? I know for me, I vacillate. I can get there, but then things start to press in onto me, and I can go right back to this physical realm. How about you? So we're really going to that place, what all the pressure is doing right now, is really going to that place where that invisible realm is more real to us than anything. And I love those experiences, but they're short-lived, because we're still come back to this three-dimensional world, which I think we're moving out of, but I'm going to talk about that. But that invisible realm. So the spiritual realm we talk about, but do we truly understand and know it's more real than the physical realm? I mean, really, right now, if I told you, look at your checkbook and see if you can pay all your bills, or to know that you live by infinite potential and possibilities and that, everything in the universe, which one would you believe right now? if your checkbook didn't look like you could pay all your bills. See, we're doing something. We're really being pressed at this moment to go to a new dimension and know that it's more real in the physical realm. We would consider the synchronicities and know that they have meaning in our life. These are coincidences with purpose, especially when we are feeling those that are awakening, that something big is happening right now. How many of you really in the inner being know that something big is happening right now? I want to see your hands. Really know, really feel it. That something in this world is changing like it's never changed before. It's shifting you like it's never shifted you before. It's pushing you like it's never pushed you before. For me, I feel that. Because there is an irreversible change that's happening right now. You and I have lived through the change of a season of the universe. It's 26,000-year change. You know, we went through 2012 and we thought certain things would happen. But they didn't happen maybe in a physical realm, but they're happening in a spiritual realm. And those that are tuned in, we're connected and feeling it. It's unsettling. How many of you are feeling unsettled? You know, we say, oh, we're so spiritual. You know, everything's just, oh, we're just, you know, I just meditate 5 hours a day, and then I go meditate another 6 hours, and everything's just so spiritual. No, it's alarming in some ways. It's disheartening in some ways. It makes us, you know, our bodies are trying to come in harmony with these new energies and things. We're trying. That's why I was saying about Rusty. I mean, I said, when I went in there, it was like, it's one of the tools, Rusty, that are really helping us to get in tune and in harmony with these new frequencies. The breath is everything. You know, the Holy Spirit in the Bible is the sacred breath. So what he does with that breathing is just phenomenal. But these changes are happening. And we're seeing a world that's imploding on itself. Everything, we're seeing everything that's just imploding. You know, with this knowledge, how many of none of my grandkids are immunized. You know, these kids have information now. We were led down the primrose path. Actually, I didn't get my kids immunized because I was a reader. But many in my generation did. But things are happening, and something new is being birthed. And you know, those of us that have given birth, it ain't always pretty. It just ain't. I don't know about you, but I remember that transition period. You know, you want to kill everybody around you. You know, I remember my doctor was over on the other side of the room, didn't even want to come near me. You know, it's like, it just ain't pretty, because you're not feeling good. You might be even throwing up. You know, things are happening in your body. But it's the same today, because we're the ones that are birthing. We're the ones, you know, the virginal mind, that pure consciousness. It's not talking about a virginal body, somebody that never had sex. It's talking about a pure consciousness, an innocent consciousness that can birth the Christ. And that's us. That's us. All about us. So we're feeling this, but can we understand all of this is put in motion by that invisible realm that's planning something for all of us right now, out of our sight? Because there is an invisible realm that's dwelling in the mind right now. The realm of light, inside and outside of bodies, is doing things right now. And if we are sensitive, we're feeling it. I don't know about you, but I am feeling it probably more than ever in my spiritual walk in this moment. Probably more than ever. Everything is done in an invisible realm. Right now, what are you thinking? What are you thinking right now? What did you think when you first sat down and Pam and Mark started to sing? And what are you going to think after I finish talking today? You know, what are you going to think? Because right now, all your thoughts are in an invisible realm. Even that person next to you, you can reach out and touch them, but they don't know what's in your mind. Because those thoughts are in that invisible realm. But the thoughts that you're thinking are the thoughts that are going to begin manifesting in our realm. So we're beginning to see that everything, that invisible realm is the creator. That invisible realm is where everything happens. But we're also stuck in this physical realm. So beyond that knowledge of one sitting beside you right now, even though you can touch them, you can turn to that person and you have not a clue what they're thinking about right now. Probably think my pants are not long enough, or they don't like red shoes, or who knows what they're thinking. You don't know, because it's an invisible realm. But what we're seeing in the world, what we're seeing in the world is the corporate consciousness right now. You know, we've all been part of that. So you have no idea. It's it's planning or thinking about, just as they have no idea the invisible you inside your body. Everything that happens is orchestrated from an invisible realm. When we talk to each other, we interact on a lower plane. Words are much lower energy. Thoughts have much higher energy. They're like fluid, where our words are denser. And we can only see the physical bodies, but we've never seen the real people that are sitting in these chairs today. You know, Pam has a song about the light. When you go beyond the flesh, it's spirit. But we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it, but we're tapping into it now. We're beginning to tap into it now. Or the real band that operates their body, you're only a machine. You're only a frequency. You're full of frequencies. All you really are thoughts and emotions. That's really all we are, thoughts and emotions. And then that spirit is what really drives the body, drives this machine. I'll never forget when I went to Bruce Lipton. He wrote the book Biology of Belief, and he was a medical school teacher at medical school. And he was saying, you know, they've always traded the car and not the driver of the car. When you get sick and you have something wrong with you, they want to treat what's wrong with you. But what's driving the car? And he still began to teach that it's this that's driving the car. It's this that talks to every cell in our body. It's the invisible realm that directs your very body. It directs our whole world, and we're really trying to tap into that. So when we get to, when we go to meditation, is when we really interact with those higher dimensions, and we get information beyond this physical realm. This morning, I just want to say, we did a meditation. I went into meditation with Roger. It was profound this morning. Absolutely profound. We had, I think there was 7 of us. Wasn't there, Roger? I think 7 this morning. But there was such a unity, such a palatable spirit there. And Roger saw all this stuff happening, but all of us felt it. We're tapping into things beyond this physical realm right now. That's what we're here to do. You know, it says that things of the world are going to go dim to us. Those of us that are really on this path and really beginning to tap in, that's where I want to go. I want those things to become dim, that I can really connect in a greater way and see past. You know, Jesus keeps saying, if you have eyes to see, if you have ears to hear. And he wasn't talking about a physical realm. He was talking about, can you see beyond your situation? Can you see beyond your circumstances? Can you see beyond somebody that is living on the streets? Somebody that's sick? Can you see beyond all that and see the reality of who they really are? And that's another thing I think we're learning right now, is to go beyond that. See beyond all those things. So what's the difference between the invisible and the invisible world? The invisible ones is on the higher plane. It's the divine kind. And it's orchestrated by this electrical energy. The invisible ones on this, and it's all about love and peace, harmony. So if you want to know if you're really connected to those higher energies, to that invisible world, it's when you feel that love, when you feel that connection, when you feel you want to do that sacred service. When we're connected to the physicality, we're in competition. You know, we want what somebody else has.
There's a hand light.
I'm back on, I think, yeah. You know, it's when we want to compete and all of that, that's when we know what's more real to us. You know, I remember a scripture years and years ago. Started in ministry. Battery. And it said this in Revelation. It said, if God opens a door, no man can shut it. And I can remember, you know, I was just going to churches there, and I knew evangelists and everything, and they would always be telling me about their plans and how they're going to do this. And, you know, you go and they say, it's 1997, and God tells me to tell you to give $1,197. It seemed like they were always trying to manipulate. And through the years, I have remembered that scripture. It says, yeah, let me just have that, Pam, just in case I pop off again. It says that if God opens a door, no man can shut it. What is that saying? It's saying the invisible realm that's for you is much greater than any physical realm against you. There you go. Yeah. So what it's saying is, where do you put your faith? Where do you put those things? Is it in the visible realm or this physical realm? So what we're talking about is this invisible realm. And all the powerful stuff we claim we want in this lower plane, but it destroys us with vengeance and hate and all of these things. So when we see this invisible realm, we begin to really understand this higher potential that we're here for. Because we are here for something so beyond what's going on in this physical realm. But how many of us have really touched that? And I think that all that's happening in our world right now is really pressing us to that. But we're all from this invisible realm, and we took on these bodies. I guess I picked this one for this incarnation and said, I'll take her, and so I picked this one. And then we became subject to that mutant DNA, didn't we? To all the dense beliefs of those people that took on the bodies before us, our parents and all the generation before us, and had already fallen into the clutches of the lower realms of energy. So the higher invisible realms became lower invisible realms. And we begin to live in these denser energies. But now, as we are awakening, we're beginning to see past those. And that's what I think all of this is all about. So here's what's happening before our eyes today. The things are coming from the lower invisible realm are not being supported by new energies right now. That's what the Mayan calendar was all about. We had all disruption in government, we had Enron, we had all of these guys that were cheating and everything. Then all of a sudden, when we stepped into that ninth rung of the Mayan calendar, it all came out. It was not supported anymore. So that's what we're seeing. It's not being supported by these new energies, and things are crashing down around us. So I know all of us are feeling it right now. It was so easy. I remember when I was in religion. In the back of my book, I had everything that was going to happen till the end of the age. I had all of it. I knew exactly what was going to happen. Then I stepped out of the religious realm and I went, now what? It's like going to college and your parents don't tell you what time to come home. They don't tell you, you got to go to bed. All of a sudden you're on your own. And it's like the rug's pulled out from under you. But that's what's happening to us now. All of those traditions, all of those things that we really were comfortable in are being pulled out from under us, and we cannot rely on those anymore. It's crashing down around us because the invisible ones in higher realm are more involved in the things we're seeing. I wanted to say too, October 22nd, we're having, and I can't, Cher, do you remember his name? Richard Dolan, who's on Ancient Aliens on television all the time, will be here October 22nd. He's going to do a seminar here. So, mark your calendar. So anyway, but what we're seeing, what I brought that up is we're seeing that there are things that are involved in what's happening around us in an invisible realm. And I think that's one of the things he's going to talk about. And if we're paying attention to what's going on, we're going to see they're drawing us closer and closer to that invisible realm. To the twins. And we'll be face to face. The Bible says this. It says, we see dimly in a glass. And that's what we've seen in this physical realm, dimly in a glass. But then we begin to see as we are seen, and we see face to face. That's where we're going. We're going to be seeing face to face. That's why meditation with the invisible higher realm is so powerful and so important. Everybody should be in there with Roger in the morning. You missed it. This morning, usually I think I'm a busy girl, and I got to do all these things in the morning. This morning I thought, no, I'm going in there, and I'm going to meditate. And it was profound. There is nothing like meditating by yourself, but it's also powerful when we meditate in a group. Meditation is probably one of the most important, powerful things you can do today, because you get in touch with that invisible realm. It's the only way for us to move past our mind and connect with those higher realms. This mind of mine, I don't know about yours, but it's going all the time until you slow it down and really begin to connect. When we begin to connect with these higher realms, instead of thinking, based on these lower invisible substances that cause us suffering. Jesus said this, while in the world, when you're connected with what's going on physically in your life, you're going to suffer. You're going to have tribulation. But be of good cheer, I've overcome this physical realm. You don't have to just be connected to this realm. There's a higher dimension for you. He said, be of good cheer. You too can connect to that. But as long as we stay connected to what's going on around us, we are going to suffer. So we're beginning to connect to these higher realms and bring them in through, and bringing things into manifestation. This is going to happen individually, and it's going to happen on a national level more and more. There's a rendezvous taking place right now, today, For many of us in these higher realms, I don't know about you, but I've had some experience. I did a past life regression with Patty, and if you haven't done that, listen, you haven't lived. And we went back to Atlantis, and I saw Atlantis imploding on itself, and I had higher beings talking to me. I mean, we are finding ways to connect, to really connect, and you see that we've had these experiences, these other lives. This is just who we are this time. But we're beginning to have these experiences, and I've had some other experiences, and I believe it's going to happen more and more to all of us right now. For many of us, these higher realms are becoming real because we're open to the visible realms, and we're understanding that it's our true reality. I want to read something. It's called The Shadow Universe. It's subatomic tracking finds clues to the unseen universe. This is by James Glantz, and it was in the New York Times in January 2004. An experiment that tracks let me put my glasses on here. An experiment that tracks subtle motions of subatomic particles called murons has found tantalizing evidence for a vast shadow universe of normally unseen matter existing side by side with ours. Science at the Brookhaven National Laboratory said yesterday. So here's a case of unseen universes. Science is beginning to prove it, and they're calling it a twin universe. You're probably there, doing something else today. Probably didn't come to NBOC today. Probably doing something else today. You know, when you're in your dreams, you're probably in those twin universes. This is not science fiction anymore. This is reality. Everything is pointing us to something much bigger. So here's the case. The universe is real as ours, is shadowing our universe. I mean, this is not from a religious book. This is from a science magazine. This is from a scientist with a scientific mind that's saying this. And many of us are beginning to have visions and tap into that in meditation. And if we open to it, we're going to see its presence is what's going on right now in our lives, in our world. We are tapping into something so much bigger. I told the story of Marceline Dyer many moons ago when she was in labor. And probably you can identify with this. She was in labor, and she was her first baby, and she was all afraid, and this beautiful redhead came into her and said, listen, Marceline, there's something deeper inside of you that you can connect to. And if you can find that, you won't suffer. And so she began to help Marceline tap into that. And she did. She had her baby. They were saying it was going to be hours. She had her baby really fast, no pain, like one pain, and she had the baby. So after she had the baby, she said, you know, I want to thank that nurse. That there was a beautiful redheaded nurse that came in and helped me. I said, we have no redheaded nurse in this hospital. She said, well, I know you do because she came into my room. She said, no, we've never had a redheaded nurse, not only on the floor, but in the hospital. How many times have we seen people at accidents where something there is helping them, and then all of a sudden, whoosh, it's gone. You see, we're beginning to see that things are happening way beyond what we can see with our eyes. Many of us have stories like that. And I wanted to say, anybody have a story like that? I was thinking this morning, I'd like to hear. Anybody have a story where and just short,
Yeah,
Anne-Marie?
I mean, a couple of times I've had people come out of nowhere to help me when I really needed it. And when I turned around to thank them, they disappeared.
Yeah.
And then I was like, where did they go? They were just behind me just a moment ago. And I ran up the street, and I looked everywhere to see if maybe they had walked very quickly from away from where I was standing, and I couldn't find them.
Wow. Anybody else have anything that they've ever, yeah, Mary Ann.
One evening, Laura and I were at Ben T. Davis Beach taking pictures of spoonbills, of course, and this woman came up to us and said, can I say a prayer with you two? I was like, sure, you can say a prayer with us. So she said a prayer with us, and she started talking about, you know, her life and how things were bad and how, you know, God made it so much better for her, you know, and, you know, thanked her again, and I wanted to give her a hug, but she like wouldn't let me give her a hug, like she kind of backed off a little bit, and then, you know, we all said thank you again, and she turned around and we watched her disappear.
Wow. That's a good story. Really good story. Anybody else have anything that they want to share that, yeah, Diane?
My daughter was having trouble with car issues, accidents, and I looked in her car. This was when this was over 5 years ago. I looked in her car and I saw this curly-haired figure, and I'll never forget this. I knew it was an angel, and I looked at him. Her head was tilted on the side. I said, "Is that Crystal?" And then I looked, and she looked angelic, and I looked away. I said, "Oh, it's my imagination." I looked there again, and the angel was there. It was in the car, and then it was there for a while, and then it disappeared. But it stayed there a while. I was like, "This is like amazing."
Wow.
And then it was gone. And I said, "Crystal," I said, "You have an angel in your car that's watching you." So.
Mhm. Anybody else have anything that they? Yeah, Kathy.
I'm a nursing supervisor. She was driving to her mother's funeral. Her car filled up with pink mist
Wow.
inside the car.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you know what? We're all having these experiences now. We should expect them because really that's the reality. You know, we think we're not made for those, but we are made for those. And the thing is this, everything is interconnected. You know, the emerald tablets that I'm going to be teaching, that's where it came as above, so below. So as we are electrically in that invisible mind, it begins to register in the universe. I want to show you, it's hard to see this, but the human cerebral cortex and the cosmic dark matter are almost identical. Identical. What's happening in the universe is happening in your head. You know, I'll never forget when I was listening about Joseph's dream, you know, and he put his head on a rock. And all of a sudden the angels were going up and down on this ladder, and I thought, well, that was in his head. He was having a dream. And that's what's connecting us to the invisible and the physical realm. It's within us. We can connect. We can connect. And what's that rock? Our pineal gland. That's the rock up here when we activate that pineal gland. And it lets off that DMT. I was reading an article about DMT too, and how it takes us multidimensional levels when we activate that in the pineal gland. It bypasses this mind. You know when it says, you know, how many people have said to you, you're losing your mind? I've had that said a few times to me. But you know what? That's good. That's good because they know you're coming out of the box. You're thinking in a higher dimension than what's going on in this physical realm. So we're seeing that interconnectedness, that realm of shadows, the realm of the twins. So things like teleportation. How many of you have experienced teleportation? I have. You know, where we get lifted up. You know, you do it in your dreams all the time. How many of you fly in your dreams? I mean, it just used to be Star Wars. But when we get closer to that invisible realm, we can see that it's not science fiction. And guess what? Everything science fiction came out of a mind. And if you can think it, it's true. Because it's out of that invisible realm. And what they're doing is pulling those things they're seeing in that invisible realm and putting them out there for you to say, it could be real within me. You see, when you see it, it is. So science has found that two entangled particles can appear to influence one instantaneously. They put them going in different directions, and they'll change one, and instantaneously the other one changes. Even in a universe. Not only in a room, but in a universe, we're interconnected. We're interconnected to an invisible realm that's becoming more real than what we are living in. So another thing that science is doing is now creating or trying to create and copy the interaction between twins that can operate within each other, opposite ends of the universe, with no visible contact, because we're interconnected. So could it be when situations arise that are connected to someone in some way, do we view it as a coincidence? Or could that invisible realm be trying to talk to us when people come into our lives? When friends come or somebody comes with a message, trying to get our attention because something's happening. And unless we resolve it, it's going to keep happening. It's going to keep happening. And I just heard something today which I'm going to touch on. I don't know where it is in my notes, but I'll get to it. But anyway, there's been a season for everything, including our minds. And just like snows in the winter and heat comes in the summer, the things of our mind, our very lives, play in a circular stage. And that's where we are right now. Whether this universe or a parallel universe, our minds are in this circular play that's going on. Things are repeating over and over. And the reaction to their happenings, is how we react to what's happening is whether they're going to replay out in our life or not. And when we connect to that invisible realm and quit seeing things that are always in this physical realm, we're going to react in a different way. And when we do, they're not going to play out in the same way they did in the last time. How many of you have gone through something, you know, as kids? Somebody talks about you, gossips about you, and you react, and you want to go tell all your friends what, how bad that person is. But then you grow up a little bit more, and somebody gossips about you, and you have just a less reaction, because you're understanding where it's coming from. But then you get really mature, and somebody gossips about you, and it doesn't affect you anymore, because you're understanding on a higher plane that it doesn't matter. That the opinion of others really doesn't matter. So that's what's happening in the universe right now. I talked about Clifton Towers that came down at 11/11/90, and it was a tower that was brought down. And then we had 9/11 that came down, and they were the same events, very same events, just brought on by different responses. And so the question was, are we going to have another 9/11? And I just read or heard on the news or something, I can't remember, that they were projecting another 9/11, some kind of terrorist attack. But the question is, if we get it, and we connect it at a visible realm, we're not going to have another 9/11. And what's being fed to us by the media all the time? Fear. Fear. So we're really understanding that if we can connect to something greater than ourselves, life is going to change. You're here in this moment. In the evolution of all humanity, you've probably been around many times before, but for this very moment, you're here to connect. All of Revelation in the Bible says this: come up higher. The Emerald Tablets say, come up higher. Connect to something that's beyond this physical realm. And the only way you can do that is getting out of our minds. Me, you, all of us, because our minds, 99% of our thoughts, just like 99% of the universe can't be seen, 99% of your thoughts are not true. And that's what really brings the agony of life, isn't it? Are those thoughts that we keep going around. It's like a bird flies over, but you don't have to let it make a nest. And many times we let it make a nest and lay eggs, and we just keep dwelling on it. But we're learning there's something bigger. And that's really what I want to say this morning. There's something bigger than what we see with our eyes. There's a realm way beyond that we can connect to and not be all in this dense matter. One of the things that the Emerald Tablet tells us, so true, it says, fear is a dense matter. We cannot ascend while we have fear. And we're being fed that every day in some realm in America. So we've got to find a way to turn it off, get away from it, and dispel it from our bodies. So, because fear is that dense energy, and to really connect, we have to begin getting rid of some of that dense energy, going to those wounds, and releasing those wounds that we had through the breath, through meditation, whatever it is, begin connecting to something that's bigger than us. And you know what? You can do it. We're all here. No matter what's coming up right now, we're all here to do it and to help one another. And that's what NBOC is about, is supporting one another in this journey of really connecting, that we can talk about these crazy things, teleportation, and coming up out of your body and having a Kundalini experience, or going to Atlanta with Patty. We can talk about those things because we know that something as big is happening. So I just want to encourage all of you, tap into that realm, and the things of this world will begin to dim. And so it is.